Alright, welcome back for Chapter 2 of Banner in the Sky by James Ramsey Ullman. Again, sorry for any mispronunciations ahead of time. We'll get into it. Okay, Chapter 2. A Boy and a Man. The crevice was about 6 feet wide at the top and narrowed gradually as it went down. But how deep it was, Rudy could not tell. After a few feet, the blue walls of ice curved away at a sharp slant, and what was below the curve was hidden from sight. "Hello?" Rudy called. "Hello," a voice answered from the depths. "How far down are you?" "I'm not sure. About 20 feet, I'd guess." "On the bottom?" "No, I can't even see the bottom. I was lucky and hit a ledge." The voice spoke in German, but with a strange accent. Whoever was down there, Rudy knew it was not one of the men of the valley. "Are you hurt?" he called. "Nothing broken, no," said the voice, "just shaken up some, and cold." "How long have you been there?" "About 3 hours." Rudy looked up and down the crevice. He was thinking desperately of what he could do. "Do you have a rope?" he asked the voice. "No." "How many of you are there?" "Only me." There was a silence. When the voice spoke again, it was still quiet and under strict control. "Then you'll have to get help," it said. Rudy didn't answer. To get down to Kirtle would take at least 2 hours, and for a party to climb back up would take 3. By that time it would be night, and the man would have been in the crevice for 8 hours. He would be frozen to death. "No," said Rudy. "It would take too long. What else is there to do?" Rudy's eyes moved over the ice walls, almost vertical, smooth as glass. "Have you an axe?" he asked. "No, I lost it when I fell. It dropped to the bottom." "Have you tried to climb?" "Yes, but I can't get a hold." There was another silence. Rudy's lips tightened, and when he spoke again, his voice was strained. "I'll think of something," he cried. "I'll think of something." "Don't lose your head," the voice said. "The only way is to go down for help. But you'll maybe and maybe not. That's a chance we'll have to take." The voice was as quiet as ever, and hearing it, Rudy's voice was suddenly ashamed. Here he was, safe on the glacier's surface, showing fear and despair, while the one below, facing almost certain death, remained calm and controlled. Whoever it was down there, it was a real man, a brave man. Rudy drew in a long, slow breath. With his climbing staff, he felt down along the smooth surface of the ice walls. "Are you still there?" said the voice. "Yes," he said. "You had better go. Wait." Lying flat on the glacier, he leaned over the rim of the crevice and lowered his staff as far as it would go. Its end almost came to the curve in the walls. "Can you see it?" he asked. "See what?" said the man. Obviously he couldn't, standing up. Rudy removed his jacket and tied it by one sleeve to the curved end of the staff. Then, holding the other end, he again lay prone and lowered his staff and jacket. "Can you see it now?" he asked. "Yes," said the man above. "How far above you is it?" "About 10 feet. Again the staff came up. Rudy took off his shirt and tied one of its sleeves to the dangling sleeve of the jacket. This time, as he lay down, the ice bit cold and rough into his bare chest, but he scarcely noticed it. With his arms extended, all the shirt and half the jacket were out of sight, beneath the curve in the crevice. "How near you now?" he called. "Not far," said the voice. "Can you reach it?" "I'm trying." There was the sound of scraping boot nails, of labored breathing, but no pull on the shirt sleeve down below. "I can't make it," said the voice. It was fainter than before. "Wait," said Rudy. For the third time, he raised the staff. He took off his trousers. He tied a trouser leg to the loose sleeve of the shirt. Then he pulled one by one at all the knots he had made between the staff and jacket and the shirt and the trousers. He pulled until the blood pounded in his head and the knots were as tight as his strength could make them. This done, he stepped back from the crevice to the point where his toes had rested when he lay flat. With feet and hands he kicked and scraped the ice until he had made 2 holes. Then, lying down as before, he dug his toes deep into them. He was naked now, except for his shoes, stockings, and underpants. The cold rose from the ice into his blood and bones. He lowered the staff and knotted clothes like a sort of crazy fishing line. The trousers and the shirt and half of the jacket passed out of sight. He was leaning over as far as he could. "Can you reach it now?" he called. "Yes," the voice answered. "All right, come on. You won't be able to hold me. I'll pull you in." "No, you won't." He braced himself. The pull came. His toes went taut in their ice holds, and his hands tightened on the staff until the knuckles showed white. Again, he could hear a scraping sound below, and he knew that the man was clawing his boots against the ice while trying to lever himself up and to take as much weight as possible off the improvised lifeline. But the wall obviously offered little help. Almost all his weight was on the lifeline. Suddenly, there was a jerk, and one of the knots in the clothing slipped, and the staff was almost wrenched from Rudy's hands. But the knot held, and his hands held. He tried to calm down. "All right." Or he tried to call down. "All right?" But he had no breath for words from below. The only sound was the scraping of boots on ice. How long it went on Rudy's could never have said. Perhaps only for a minute or so, but it seemed like hours. And then at last, it happened. A hand came into view around the curve of the crevice wall, a hand gripping the twisted fabric of his jacket. And then a second hand rising slowly above it. A beard appeared. A pair of shoulders, a face was raised for an instant and then lowered. Again, one hand moved slowly up past the other. But Rudy no longer saw it, for now his eyes were shut tight with the strain. His teeth were clamped, the cords of his neck bulged, the muscles of his arms felt as if he were being drawn one by one from the bones that held him. He began to lose his toe holds. He was being dragged forward desperately, frantically. He dug in with his feet, pressed his whole body down, as if he could make it part of the glacier. Though all but naked on the ice, he was pouring with sweat. Somehow he stopped the slipping. Somehow he held on. But now suddenly the strain was even worse, for the man had reached the lower end of the staff. The slight give of the stretched clothing was gone, and in its place was rigid dead weight on a length of wood. The climber was now close but heavy, indescribably heavy. Rudy's hands ached and burned as if it were a rod of hot lead that they clung to. It was not a mere man he was holding, but a giant or a block of granite. The man was unendurable, the pain unendurable. He could hold on no longer. His hands were opening. It was all over, and then it was over. The weight was gone. There was a scraping sound close behind him, a hand on the rim of ice, a figure pulling itself up onto the lip of the crevice. The man was beside Rudy, turning to him, staring at him. "Why? You're just a boy," he said in astonishment. Rudy was too numb to move or speak. Taking the staff from him, the man pulled up the line of clothes, untied the knots, and shook them out quickly. "Come on now." "Quickly," he said. Pulling the boy to his feet, he helped him dress, then he rubbed and pummeled him until at last Rudy felt the warmth of returning circulation. "Better?" the man asked, smiling. Rudy nodded, and finally he was able to speak again. "And thank you." "And you, sir," he said. "You are all right?" The man nodded. He was warming himself now, flapping his arms and kicking his feet together. "A few minutes of sun and I'll be as good as new." Nearby, a black boulder lay embedded in the glacier ice, and going over to it, they sat down. The sunlight poured over them like a warm bath. Rudy slowly flexed his aching fingers and saw that the man was doing the same. And then the man had raised his eyes and was looking at him. "It's a miracle how you did it," he said. "A boy of your size all alone." "It was nothing," Rudy murmured. "Nothing? I only saved my life," said the man. For the first time now, Rudy was really seeing him. He was a man of perhaps 30, very tall and thin, and his face, too, was thin, with a big hawk-like nose and a strong, jutting chin. His weather-brown cheeks were clean-shaven, his hair black, his eyes deep-set and gray, and when he spoke, his voice was still almost as quiet as when it had been muffled by the ice walls of the crevice. "He is what?" Rudy thought. Not Swiss, he knew. Not French or German. English? Perhaps. Yes, English. And then suddenly a deep excitement filled him, for he knew who the man was. You are Captain Winter, he murmured. That's right. And I have saved, Rudy stopped in confusion, and the Englishman grinned. You're saved, he said, smiling. One of the worst umbilicals that ever walked on a glacier, an umbilical who was so busy looking up at a mountain that he couldn't even see what was at his feet. Rudy was wordless, almost stunned. He looked at the man and then away in embarrassment, and he could scarcely believe what had happened. The name of Captain John Winter was known through the length and breadth of the Alps. He was the foremost mountaineer of his day, and during the past 10 years had made more first ascents of great peaks than any other man alive. Rudy had heard that he had come to Kurtul a few days before. He had hoped that at least he would see him in the hotel or walking by in the street. But actually to meet him, and in this way to pull him from a crevice, save him, it was incredible. Captain Winter was watching him. And you, son, he asked, what is your name? Somehow the boy got his voice back. Rudy, he said. Rudy Matt. Matt, now it was the man's turn to be impressed, not of the family of the great Joseph Matt. He was my father, Rudy said. Captain Winter studied him with his gray eyes. Then he smiled again. I should have known, he said. A boy who could do what you've done. Did you know my father, sir? No, unfortunately, I didn't. He was before my day. But ever since I was a boy, I have heard of him. In 20 years, no one has come to the Alps and not heard of the great guide, Joseph Matt. Rudy's heart swelled. He looked away, his eyes fixed on the vast mountain that rose before them. And then he saw that Captain Winter was watching it too. Unconsciously, the Englishman spoke his thoughts. Your father was... He caught himself and stopped. Yes, said Rudy softly. He was killed on the citadel. There was a silence. Captain Winter reached into a pocket and brought out an unbroken bar of chocolate. Luckily, I fell on the other side, he grinned. He broke the bar in two and handed half to Rudy. Oh, no, sir. Thank you. I couldn't. When I meet a boy your age who can't eat chocolate, said Winter, I'll be glad to stay in a crevice for good. Rudy took it, and they sat munching. The sun was warm on their thawing bodies. Far above it struck the cliffs and the snowfields of the citadel, so brightly that they had to squint against the glare. Then there was Winter's quiet voice again. What do you think, Rudy? Thank you, sir. Can it be climbed? Climbed? The citadel? Oh, wait, hold on, I read that wrong. Then there was Winter's quiet voice. What do you think, Rudy? Think, sir? Can it be climbed? Climbed? The citadel? Your father thought so, alone among all the guides of Switzerland. He thought so. There was another pause. And I think so, too, said Captain Winter. The boy was peering again at the shining heights. And suddenly his heart was pounding so hard that he was for sure the Englishman must be able to hear it. Is that why you have come here, sir? He asked. To try to climb the citadel? Well, now, Winter smiled. It's not so simple. You know, for one thing, there's not a guide in the valley who would go with me. I have an uncle, sir. He is... Yes, I know your uncle. Franz Lerner. He is the best in Kurtul. And I've spoken to him. But he would not go. Anything but that, he said. Any other peak, any route, any venture, but not that, he said. Not the citadel. He remembers my father. Yes, he remembers your father. They all remember him. And while they love and respect his memory, they all think he was crazy, Winter chuckled softly. Now they think I'm crazy, he added. And maybe they're right, too, he said. What will you do, sir? Asked Rudy. Not try it alone? No, that crazy I'm not. Winter slowly stroked his long jaw. I'm not certain what I'll do, he went on. Perhaps I'll go over to the next valley, to Broly. I've been told there is a guide there, a man called Saxo. Do you know him? Yes, Emil Saxo. I have never met him, but I have heard of him. They say he is a very great guide. Well, I thought perhaps I'd go and talk with him. After a while, But first I must recontire some more. Make my plans, pick the route, if there is a route. Yes, there is. Of course there is. Rudy had not thought the words. They simply burst out from him. And now again he was embarrassed as the man looked at him curiously. So, Captain Winter, said Captain Winter, that is interesting, Rudy. Tell me why you think so. I have studied the citadel many times, sir. Why? Because he stopped himself. He couldn't say it. Because you want to climb it yourself. I am not yet a grown man, sir. I know I cannot expect. I wasn't a grown man either, said the captain. When I first saw the citadel, I was younger than you, only 12, and my parents had brought me here for a summer holiday. But I can still remember how I felt when I looked up at it, and the promise I made myself that someday I was going to climb it. He paused. His eyes moved slowly upward. Youth is the time for dreams, boy, he murmured. The trick is, when you get older, not to forget them. Rudy listened, spellbound. He had never heard anyone speak like that. He had not known a grown man could think and feel like that. Then Winter asked, This east face, Rudy, what do you think of it? Think of it, sir? Could it be climbed? Rudy shook his head. No, it is no good. The long chimney there, you see, it looks all right. It could be done. And to the left, the ledges, he pointed, they could be done too. But higher up, no, they stop. The chimney stops, and there's only smooth rock. What about the northeast ridge? That is not good either. It's not so steep. No, it is not so steep, Rudy said. But the rocks are bad. They slope out, with few places for holds. And the north face, Rudy talked on about the north face, the west ridge, the south ridge. He talked quietly and thoughtfully, but with deep inner excitement, for this was the first time in his life that he had been able to speak to anyone of these things, which he had thought and studied for so long. And then suddenly he stopped, for he realized what he was doing. He, Rudy Matt, a boy 16 who worked in the kitchen of the Beau Site Hotel, was presuming to give his opinions to one of the greatest climbers in the world. But Captain Winter had been listening intently. Sometimes he nodded. Go on, he said now, and Rudy paused. But I am only... Go on, and Rudy went on. That doesn't leave much, said the captain a little later. No, sir, said the boy, only the southeast ridge. Yes, sir. That was the way your father tried, wasn't it? Yes, sir. And you believe it is the only way? Yes, sir. Captain Winter rubbed his jaw for a moment before speaking again. Then, that also is very interesting to me, Rudy, he said quietly, because it is what I believe too. Later, they treaded their way down the blue glacier. For a while, they moved in silence. Then Captain Winter asked, What do you do, Rudy? Do, sir? Are you an apprentice guide, a porter? Rudy swallowed. No, sir. What then? He could hardly say it. A dishwasher. A dishwasher? In the Beau Site Hotel. It is my mother, sir. Since my father died, you see, she is afraid. She does not want... Rudy swallowed again. I am to go into the hotel business, he murmured. Oh. Then they moved on without speaking. It was now late afternoon, and the stillness was broken by a great roaring as sun loosened rock and ice broke off from the heights of the citadel. When they reached the path, Rudy spoke again, hesitantly. Will you please do me a favor, sir? He asked. Of course, said Winter. Before we come to the town, we will separate, and you will please not tell anyone that I have been up here today. The Englishman looked at him in astonishment. Not tell anyone? You saved my life, boy, and you want me to keep it a secret? It was nothing, sir, truly. And if you say that I have been in the mountains, my mother and uncle will hear, and I will be in trouble. Rudy's voice took on a note of urgency. You will not do it, sir. You will promise, please. Winter put a hand on his shoulder. Don't worry, he said. I won't get you in trouble. Then he smiled and added, Master Rudy Matt, dishwasher. They walked down the path. The sun sank behind them. The mountains roared. All right, that's the end of chapter 2. Come back later for chapter 3 of The Banner in the Sky by James Ramsey Ullman. Goodbye.